The vulnerability equation. Vulnerable is one of the most frequently used words in policing today. The words vulnerable and vulnerability appear in HMIC's 2016 State of the Policing report no less than 75 times. How policing deals with vulnerable people and how it manages the demand from vulnerability are some of the most critical issues facing the service today. This morning I will attempt for the first time to look at the totality of risk of vulnerable people in our society and our capacity to deal with them. It will be represented in a crude equation of demand and supply, but will attempt to give an idea of the scale of the problem. Let's break this down to the key areas of vulnerability. Honour-based abuse. There are 10 to 12 honour killings per year in the United Kingdom, but this doesn't include offences where people and children are taken abroad or where we lose knowledge of people's whereabouts, and it doesn't cover threats, control over freedom, and other offences that mask the true extent of this hidden crime type. However, I'm extremely confident that we can deal with this with our 123,000 police officers. Forced marriage. It's estimated there are 8,000 to 10,000 forced marriages a year. That is 25 a day. The Forced Marriage Unit responded to over 1,400 reports of possible forced marriages. I'm very, very confident we have the capability to cope with this demand with our 123,000 police officers. Modern slavery. Forced labour, servitude and slavery. It is estimated there are 10 to 13,000 victims of modern slavery today, and we know there are over 300 policing operations currently ongoing to deal with this emerging problem. But I'm very confident we can deal with it with our 123,000 police officers. Hate crime. Hate crime can relate to race, sexual orientation, religion, disability, transgender. Police record an incredible 62,000 hate crimes in a year. I'm reasonably confident we can deal with this with our 123,000 police officers. Child victims of abuse and sexual exploitation. The NSPCC report that 58,000 children were identified as needing protection from abuse in the United Kingdom in 2016. 1 in 20 children in the UK have been sexually abused. I'm relatively confident we can deal with this because we have 123,000 police officers. Female genital mutilation. It's estimated that 137,000 girls have undergone FGM in this country, and 60,000 girls are at risk. However, I'm confident that we can deal with this with our 123,000 police officers. Domestic abuse victims. Over 100 women and 30 men are murdered every year. Domestic abuse accounts for 8% of all crime recorded. It will affect 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men. And on average, it's not even reported until the 35th occasion. I think it's achievable with our 123,000 police officers to deal with this. Victims of sexual offences. Rape crisis centres respond to an average of 3,000 calls a week. 58,000 individuals receive a rape crisis service, and police record 24,000 reports of an adult being raped. I think we should be able to deal with this with our 123,000 police officers. Prostitution. A report estimates 70,000 people are acting as prostitutes in the United Kingdom. On average, 5 sex workers are murdered every year. I'm pretty sure we can cope, can't we, with our 123,000 police officers. Vulnerable adults. 2015 to 2016, there were an incredible 103,000 individuals who had to undertake inquiries under Section 42 of the Care Act. That is about neglect, acts of omission and physical abuse. I think we may struggle now to deal despite having 123,000 police officers. Missing person inquiries. This service receives 300,000 reports of missing people every year. I think we could do our best with 123,000 police officers. Stalking and harassment. The British Crime Survey estimated that 700,000 women are stalked each year. The Office of National Statistics estimate that 1 in 6 women and 1 in 12 men will suffer in their lifetime. We know the CPS prosecute approximately 700 stalking offences and 10,000 harassment offences each year. I'm sure we'll do our best with our 123,000 police officers. Finally, people suffering from mental health. 23,000 people were detained under Section 136 in England and Wales last year. The College of Policing estimate 4 million mental health related incidents every year. I'm not sure we can cope with our 123,000 police officers. All this, and I've not included terrorism, serious and organised crime, cyber, fraud, traffic collisions, antisocial behaviour, those traditional crimes of theft and burglary, traditional crimes that are rising, such as knife crime and firearms, event management, sporting events, community engagement, the list goes on. So the vulnerability equation is not stacking up at all. And yes, you can dispute and challenge the statistics. You know, how accurate are the estimates on hidden crimes? And yes, you can argue that there's duplication in the figures. And yes, you can argue the role of others. But one thing is clear for me when you look at the whole picture is demand divided by resource capability equals a vulnerability crisis. Clearly, there's more here than the police can manage. So we will need to look at new approaches, new ways of addressing the totality of the problem. But how about we look at the equation from another way? If we engage all public services more effectively and focus on vulnerability, the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the social workers, the fire officers, anyone who's in the public services that is involved in direct public contact, then it's not 123,000 dealing with it. It's 5.4 million people dealing with it. If we engage and give more support to charities and the superb voluntary sector, then it's not 123,000 people dealing with it. It's 17 million people dealing with it. And if we get the public to have a greater understanding of the risk and embrace preventative ways to frustrate criminal activities and minimise the risks to their families, their friends, their communities, then it's not 123,000 dealing with it. It's 65 million dealing with it. In the words of Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. Never has it been so important for a one public service approach. And I urge the government to demonstrate a drive to bring down departmental tensions and silos and to stop things that are hindering a genuine problem-solving approach and mandate all partners and agencies to work together on this issue. And it's never been so important to mobilise the public, to prevent vulnerable people becoming victims and to help those in our society who are most at risk. That is how we tip the scales against those who take advantage of the people who need us most. Thank you.